And I want to welcome everyone that's here, and to all of you who are listening to this as a recording. You're with us in spirit
Mm.
this morning. I have my Women Up mug here of coffee, and
Leslie?
really ready to go and super charged up. I have a very, very special guest to join me for our second coffee and conversations. And when I kind of thought about doing this and came up with a bit of a structure, where we kind of dive into one of my life lessons and then ask my guests to add to the list, the very first person I thought of was Cathy Scharetg. So, Cathy, welcome to Coffee and Conversations. It's so great to see you.
Oh, Leslie, I'm so honored and I'm touched. I think back on the circumstances that brought us together, right? And I think of the connections above and beyond our own consciousness. And you and I have a great deal of influence and power, but yet beyond all that, somebody says, "Hey, the two of you need to meet." And what a gift that was. What a
Right.
gift that
So our
was.
mutual friend, Bill Jansen, who I know many of you know, he founded Broker Risk Management in 2002. So that's the professional side. But personally, Cathy and I both consider Bill to be an incredibly dear friend and mentor and advisor. And he's kind of one of the girls a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at one point he said to me, Leslie, you really need to meet Cathy. And I took that very seriously. And I think the first time we met was maybe over some wine in somewhere in San Francisco, I recall. And then the next time I was coming up to the San Francisco Association of Realtors, and this must have been at least 8 or 10 years ago, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that really impressed me is Cathy volunteered to pick me up at the Oakland airport and drive me to the speech in San Francisco. And that kind of tells you everything you need to know about Cathy, because I have I have a lot of friends who, when you say pick me up at LAX, they're just like, no way ever. And here she was delighted to have time alone that we could talk. Do you remember that,
I
Cathy?
do. I remember it as specifically, and I remember stopping at the Embarcadero. You flew in, very, very much like CAR, where they make sure that you're in early and out early. I mean, they had everything perfectly timed for you to get there. So I was very honored to have an hour before we even got to the panel. But just that time had been enough. It's just enough. And, last night when I was thinking about our time together today, I thought about an author, Margaret Wheatley, that I read back in 2001, and she has a book called The Art of Conversation, and I picked it up after 9/11, and it was about how the conversations really start the healing process. And for me, that was a pivotal book. And it's a book I still keep. As a matter of fact, I was searching around reading it, because when you dare to have conversation, be brave enough to have conversations that matter, the culture changes. And when I think about what you're doing here in Coffee and Conversations and where we are in time and space,
Right.
just the whole, we were yearning for normal 8 months ago. Now we know normal is underrating our new abilities. We've created new abilities in the last 14 months. And so how do we live in curiosity if not with conversations? Because otherwise we start making up things in our head rather than being open. So what you're doing here with the Coffee and Conversations is like the creating of the ground for the next step. And so timely, Leslie, so timely.
Well, I wanted to add about you that one of the things I remember thinking after I met you and after the time in the car was, please don't talk so fast so I can write down everything you're saying. And I wish I had a tape recorder, because it just, we connected on so many levels, so many commonalities in our lives, and yet coming from very different places. And I've just, in terms of my personal board of directors, you're right in there. We really found out that we kind of spoke the same language, and but you opened me up to this incredible world. So I want to segue into the Leslie's life lessons that we're going to focus on in the first part of our conversation. And it has to do with your body, essentially. And there are really three of them. The walking is not cardio. You can do anything to the right music. And when I'm physically strong, I'm mentally strong. And so when we talked about this last week, you recommended a book called More Than a Body by twin sisters, Lindsay and Lexi Kite. And I will tell you, I am someone that has woken up almost every morning of my life wishing I looked like Audrey Hepburn. And, what a waste, what a waste of energy, right? And so for you to give me the gift of this book, and, I'm a highlighter, right? I even highlight the newspaper in the morning. This book is, what I've been able to read of it is highlighted. So talk to me about where you're coming from with respect to the body and fitness and however you want this to go. I think there's so much value in talking about it.
Oh, I appreciate that. The thing I loved about the book, as well as the authors, and I've seen them on TED Talk as well as a panel that they were on, is that there's a preoccupation that we have with our body. That preoccupation robs us of the ability to be present to all the things that are. And wrapped up in that preoccupation is a cultural priority, almost like, you're not ready yet. You're not ready. You're not quite good enough.
You're not right. You're not good enough. You're not enough.
You're not
too much. You're not enough and you're too much all at the same time.
So please be quiet, fix yourself, make yourself a little better, and make yourself a little less of what I don't like and a little more of what needs to be done. So this undertow, it's an undertow under the stream of consciousness that has us go back to the but, I'd go out there, but I'd do this, but. And
we all know where it starts, right? With this focus on appearance, right? And being pretty and beautiful, and your value tied up in your appearance. And I just want to read one thing from the introduction here. They talk about doing research for the book and asking women to just spill it. How do you feel about your body, and why do you feel that way? And the answers that women give show that they're kind of outside their body, looking in from the male gaze, the gaze that society has of them. And one of the things I highlighted, women are privileging an external view of their bodies over their own internal first person perspective. A positive body image isn't believing your body looks good. It is knowing your body is good, regardless of how it works, how it looks.
I look at that, and that's where I found the preoccupation, as if that's a good use of common sense, right? We as women misuse our ability to create with our imagination against ourselves, right? So I personally love photography, and I have a great eye, but that great eye is connected to a critical mind. So a lot of times I will, for lack of a better word, attack myself. Like, okay, wait a minute, you need to do this and that instead of that. Now, am I comparing myself to Audrey Hepburn or Madonna? Or it doesn't matter, because what I'm doing is I'm making myself less than by doing something to make myself better. So there's this voice that we have that's always meant for good, right? I feel like that's always meant to be a voice of love, but we turn it into a voice of criticism. So where we see beauty is like, that's kind of the hard pause, right? So if we can just start seeing beauty and then hard pause, instead of thinking we have to have a comma, I'm beautiful, but once I get this, and this. So it's,
Yeah, it's always going to be better when I reach
Right.
this threshold, and it's the wrong threshold. It's really about feeling good. And I would appreciate it if, because I know that's one of the things that we connected on early on, and maybe the the headline is weight loss, although it really wasn't about that. And I think a lot of the people on are aware of my experience with walking into a spin class 6 years ago almost, and just going, wow, this feels good. And I know you have that moment as well.
Yeah, yeah, the waking up,
The waking up,
the
right?
waking up to what's possible. The idea, and believe me, I have no I love a good hike. I love a good walk, but there's times that it's really just it's like I'm unconscious. The consciousness happens for me physically, and I am a very physical person. I've taken that into consideration. I just have used the critical eye in my physicality. Like I'm not physical enough. Like the other day I said, well, it's only a 6 mile hike. It's straight up, 3 miles straight up. And she goes, only. She goes, can you drop the word only from your sentence? And I thought, oh yeah, because that only is connected to, I'll be better later.
Right.
It'll be better when it's an 8 mile hike. It'll be better when my endurance goes up. So I have this desire to exert myself physically, and then this judgment that holds me back. But why isn't walking cardio? Well, it's only if you're sleepwalking. If you're sleepwalking, if I was sleepwalking through it all and unaware of the potentiality underneath my sleepwalking, then I'd wake up and say, oh, well, this is nice. Won't this be nice as well? And better isn't bad, right? So it's not like I'm trying to make myself I like progression. I like seeing improvement. I think we're human beings. It's our natural course of order, but forcing myself because it's not good enough is the thing that we wake up to.
And
And
were you always active? Or because I know for me, just in terms of being consistently active, that didn't start until I had that waking up moment. And I'm just wondering for you, I mean, was there a moment where you actually entered that world, or were you always kind of pretty comfortable being physical and athletic?
I think I'm wired to athleticism, which may sound like a gift, but I also think that I have ADHD. And so one of the counterbalances of that,
Right.
if my children, when I had a child who was diagnosed, one of the symptoms was well, not symptoms, part of the cure, part of the answer was there needed to be physical activity. There needed to be an exertion of that energy. So I think that when I came to about 40 years ago, and I realized that my thinking was keeping me bogged down, it was the weight of overthinking. So there was a freedom when I exerted myself physically. There was a release of all of that overthinking when I ran. And in the Chariots of Fire, it was so beautiful. There was this one line where he was arm wrestling himself about why he couldn't run on Sunday. If you remember that movie back in the 80s. And his sister was telling him, if the race is on Sunday, you can't run. And she says, why do you even run at all? Is it a form of vanity? And he said, no, it's because I feel God's glory when I run. And there was a part of me that felt the radiant joy of my creation when I run, when I breathe, when I sweat, when I exert myself. It was almost volcanic. It was like, yes,
Right.
like
You're
you
right.
felt.
It is an incredible gift that you can give yourself, and when people say to me, like, I can't believe you do that every day, and it's like, I can't not do that every day. I can't not give myself that gift. And that's just, that's day and night. That's a wonderful place to be, where it's something that you want to do, and I think one of the lessons for life is, if you're white knuckling some change, it's not going to stick. It has to be something that you see the benefits of. And I think this awakening that you're talking about, this unification with the universe that you feel, however you want to describe that, the fact that that is able to counterbalance all of the negative messages that we give ourselves, or advertising, or the world that we live in give us, because it's not about a number, it's about how you feel, right? And that great quote about people don't remember what you say, they remember how you made them feel. And I think that when you think about your appearance and whatever, it's like, oh my gosh, she's glowing, oh my gosh, feel the energy, oh my gosh, how beautiful. That isn't tied to a metric, that's tied to, again, this gift that you can give yourself and its movement. And I'm all for a great walk too. The reason I put this life lesson is because once you get the body really pumping and the endorphins going, it's a game changer.
And there's wisdom that comes along with that when we start hearing and listening to our body from the inside out. Right. So there's a wisdom that starts arriving or arising, really, because it comes from within, where there's like, I start to learn the difference between resting and fear of inertia, right? Because there was a part of me, that not good enough girl, that was like, oh, resting, well, that's like slacking. That's like you're going to fall off the face of the earth. So as I age beautifully, I get to discern my body saying, let's rest and let's quit. I know the difference between quitting and resting today. I know.
And you don't apologize for getting a good night's sleep. I mean, this world that we grew up in, where the bigger your inbox, the more emails you get, and the less sleep that you need. I hope that's been debunked enough, because occasionally you need to take a day off and you get back on the bike the next day and it's a whole new thing. You've got to listen.
Yeah. And as you listen, I think it's interesting, because there was a book I read and I love him to pieces. His name's Matt Kahn, Khan. And the book is Whatever Arises, Love That. Whatever Arises, Love That. And he was the first author that I read that said, when you come up against that place that you want to fight through or deny or be combative in, if you could just love that, love that, the weight it carries dissipates and the choice becomes easy. Because sometimes it is, like, Kath, you're on day 3, you're rested. Now you've just gone into inertia. Now you're looking at, and how do I know that? Because there have been habits that have been overcome through my physical decisions, right? And those habits weren't part of my, you hear people saying all the time, oh, I'm just like that. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm too old for that. And we create a habitual pattern of creating limits and then calling those limits like they're built in stone, where they're just limits that we created from a
that's
who
I am, and that's it.
That's
I
it.
can't change that. Right?
Yeah. And then we get into the adventure of like, oh, that was just a silly little habit. That was just a habit. I mean, one of my greatest stories is a girl was at a family celebration, and she goes up to her mother, who was cutting the ends off the ham. And she said, Mom, why do you always cut the ends off the ham before you put it in the pan? She said, because that's what my mother did. And so she went to her mother and she said, Grandma, why does Mom always cut the ends off the ham and before she puts it in the pan? She goes, well, I did it because my mother always did it. So the great grandmother, there was a great occasion, went to the great grandmother and said, why does Nana and Mama always cut the ends off the ham before they put it in the pan? She goes, I don't know why they did. I did it because my pan wasn't big enough. So we look at the things that we were given by warm, friendly people, and we think that's the way it is. And then we come to understand that it's much bigger than what we've always thought, that we're much stronger. We don't have to make ourselves stronger. We are stronger. We are beautiful. We are fast as we need to be, and we have time to grow. So
I think that reminds me of one of the things I wrote, which was, if I'm mentally strong, if I'm physically strong, I'm mentally strong. And you really can't deny that. I feel it, and I think that getting physically strong enabled me to make different choices, right? And to do things that I thought I could never do, that were too hard or would disappoint other people, or I would be dealing with anger on the other end of it, whatever it is. But when you're feeling physically strong, it changes your perspective. And here's another quote from the book, the chapter on reclaiming health and fitness for yourself. And they do a wonderful job of kind of debunking the BMI, right?
Yes.
And really talking about pulmonary fitness and cardio and things that have nothing to do with quote unquote weight. It's how you feel. But he's saying, on the flip side, getting involved in any kind of athletics or enjoyable physical activity is a practical way to boost your body image, because it can help shift your perspective toward what you are doing and feeling, instead of how you look or what you weigh. And I just related to that so much, because I wouldn't say I'm there yet, but I've never been so comfortable in my own skin as I am today, and I will say just one other thing, and you kind of alluded to it, as you get older, you can't kind of do it the same way. I mean, things wear out a little bit, and I'm in a world where there are a lot more retired people than I've been with before, and people who every week have a couple doctors to go to. And I will tell you, talk about changing perspective. I am so happy that I'm able to get on my Peloton, and go down the stairs and sit up straight. It changes your perspective when you don't take it for granted.
Yeah. I had a feeling earlier this year, and it was so beautiful, Leslie. And it was that I came home to my body. Now, it's like you just come home to it. You realize that there's honor and dignity and rest and energy. And it's like, in coming home to that, and this is the part I love the most, it becomes a vehicle that you get to take out into the world. So it doesn't create isolation to come home to your body. It creates almost a sense of empowered engagement to come home to your body, that you respond. And I love you so much. You respond with so much love to so many people as a natural byproduct of who you are, right? Whether you're sitting on panels in front of thousands of people at a luncheon doing a CAR update, or whether you're holding your granddaughter in a virtual embrace because you haven't seen her yet, there's just this volcanic power of love. And that comes from within. And that is why the physicality of it all. Long time ago, I read a book, The Power of Full Engagement, and he talks about the four containers of energy, if you say, within a body. The first one is physical. And with physical energy comes the quality of your life. The quantity of your life. How much life can you embrace? So that's why the physical capacity really gives you an opportunity to be expansive. So as within, as without, the expansiveness that you feel inside when you're on that Peloton, or when you're running that final race, or when you do a 7-mile hike when you only set out to do a 5, and you just think, yes, that expansiveness really does go somewhere. It really does enter into our environment. It enters into, first the inner circle, and then it enters into the world we live in. And I think that is why it's so important. And the thing I love about the More Than a Body is you're not an ornament, you're an instrument. So the health and well-being of it all is so significant. We can't diminish it. So.
No, and it's a gift and an opportunity. So maybe we'll just close out this section and just say we highly recommend the More Than a Body book. Maybe we can kind of talk about it later or on a different platform. But we certainly are here to engage in further conversation on on this topic. So it's again, it's a wonderful gift that you can give yourself. So so the second part of this Coffee and Conversations, Cathy, is going to be talking about a set of life lessons that you suggested and felt very much in tune to, and they have to do with how to be a better giver, how to be a better asker, how to ask, how to do a simple request, how to be a better receiver. And I'd love for you to just kind of start talking about that, why that resonates with you, and just some of the background for why you felt strongly that this was something that, because we certainly, I mean, I have trouble asking for help. I have trouble with all of those things. So I thought that was a wonderful addition to our list of life lessons.
It's interesting. I heard a woman give a talk in November of last year, December. And she talked about the habits that she had broken. And a lot of them had to do with picking the wrong guy. And so she talked about her stuff, but she said, I just had to learn to be a better asker. And I thought, whoa. Now, the thing about myself, and I will say women who may relate to me sometimes, is we're great doers because we're crummy askers. So we would, okay, so we become great doers of things because we don't ask for things.
Oh my God, Cathy, I can't believe you just said that.
So
what a trap. What a trap we have set for ourselves.
So this beautiful rainfall of be a better asker, where does it fall? But on the land of exhaustion, right? Because I've exhausted myself to be that one that I'll take care of it. I'll do it. Thinking that my actions and my actions alone were going to distinguish my abilities to perform. And so I became, and I'm not prone to depression. I'm much more prone to exhaustion. I don't say it jokingly, but I say it because I know myself. I'd be prone more to homicide than suicide. Somebody would go down and it wouldn't be me, right? And so it would be a matter of my exhaustion has brought me to the point of, what if I just learned to be a better asker? And then as I do that, and that whole, everything from the beginning of time has been a cycle of give and receive, give and receive, give and receive. I think that there was part of that misinterpretation that we had when we were raised to be ornamental women, was also the fact that we took our powers of receptivity and thought that was the only part of us that was worthwhile. The only thing that was worthwhile was what we could produce. And because of shame, we had to produce it in private and then present it in public. Like, look how good I did.
Look at how easy that was for me.
Look at what I do. Look at what I do that I want you to promote me over. I'm working on a TED Talk, and it's interesting because working on a TED Talk is an interesting profession. I have a coach and everything, and it's as easily as I think. It's not as easily as I actually prepare to get on that red carpet, but the question.
But you will do it, and we will all be there. Absolutely.
It'll be interesting. But the question I pose is, do we dare to ask the questions that we're afraid to hear the answers for? And so we also have this scurrying ability to produce. I mean, we have the biological ability to take an egg, a little silly sperm, and create a human being. I mean, just think of the things that we do underneath everything else, right? And so we think that that's part of the formula of how to live life. Give me tidbits of information. I'll take it into my emotional and mental factory, and I'll show you what I can do with it. And so as we enter into a bigger world, and we know that, back to that pan for the ham, that we know that we don't have to cut the edges off anymore, what else are we capable of? what else can we do? I asked my daughter real quickly, I said, do you have a question that you were afraid to ask that you asked anyway? And off the top of her head, she shared with me her question. And I just thought, hallelujah, we've created space for people to ask questions that they don't even know how they're going to answer. When I got into sales and I was awarded highly in sales, I learned how to ask questions for answers I wanted, right? Directives, right?
Right.
Oh,
I need validation. I know what you're going to tell me, so let me set this up for you.
Right. So we would create it was almost like our questions were like target practice. Like, okay, this is my desired result. These are the questions I'm going to ask to get to that. I'm going to sell the product, make the point, get the idea across, right? So I'm going to ask enough questions. And when you go on YouTube or go on TED Talk and you look at questions, there's people that tell you how to ask 6 questions, 5 questions, 12 questions, 8 questions to get what you want in life. But what if you want more than you can see? What if part of what you're looking for, you can't quite see outside of you yet? You have to learn to ask questions from curiosity, not knowing how the answer is going to go. Questions like, oh, I don't know. Hey, I don't know what this test result is. I need you to sit down and give me some clarity around this. Or in a boardroom, hey, I don't quite understand how you expect to get a 25% increase in production when you're making no reinvestment into the bottom line. Are you expecting that all to fall on me? I don't quite understand. And so we're smart enough to have a question, but then we're timid enough to think that, oh, I'll figure this out myself, or here's a better one. What kept me quiet and in the cave for years is, what difference does it make? It's only me.
Well, and you also don't want to look like you don't know, right? You don't want to look vulnerable. You don't want to be kind of the dumb one at the table, if you will.
But here's the thing. It's like, because one of the studies that started me off on this as well was from also the I think it's BYU, Utah State maybe. But why are there so many women in the boardroom, but they aren't using their voice? Because we have the ability to see things differently. And as a matter of fact, the last talk I listened to were, why are there we're all earning the degrees, we're getting in, but why aren't we in the boardroom using our voice? And it's that fear, Leslie. You see, the thing I loved about the body book is that we apply the same rules to everybody else that we're putting on ourselves. So if we're afraid to look stupid, then we're kind of, there's a shushing thing that we're doing around us, right? So we're giving that energy to the world. So we apply the same level of scrutiny to ourselves that we apply to the world. And that's one of the things that we have to let go of. So the idea of people appearing to be, or that I think I'm going to look stupid if I ask a question, is what silences us. But then what also happens in that silence is it's multiplied to the other women in the room, and that they become silent. So I will give up my right to be stupid so that other women can jump in with their wisdom. I will now sit there and be that one. Why? Because I have the blessing of being 63 years old, and I don't care as much as I did 20 years ago. 20 years ago, somebody would have told me, you really should be quiet in the meetings. It'd be a lot shorter without you asking those stupid questions. I would have shut up. Now I look at them and they know not to even pose that to me anymore. But what I'm doing is I'm giving, maybe there's somebody with a more intelligent question that can see that I had the courage to ask mine, and then they can ask theirs.
Well, I think the other thing that I've noticed, and I know people have heard me recommend Celeste Headley's book, We Need to Talk, so many times. And, if you've read it, read it again. And the problem with that book is once you become aware of how often you are interrupted and how people hear, but they don't listen, you get very, very frustrated. And I've had that experience in the last week or so. So I think one of the issues is these rules of engagement are not commonly understood or accepted. And so not only do I not think there's enough women in the boardroom, which I know you would agree with, but why it's harder to be heard is you have to fight for airtime. And I hate fighting for airtime. I would rather just be silent and let it go than have to scream over, and then you find yourself waiting for the break where you can break in, and if that's your focus, you're not listening either. So this whole issue of how to have a dialogue and how to have a conversation that's meaningful, right? And where you learn, because if you're speaking, you're not learning, is something I'm really thinking a lot about these days, because I am noticing how hard it is to be heard, even if you are talking, right? And even if you're not afraid and you want to be heard, because I agree with you. At my age, I'm not afraid anymore, right? I want to be there, but to get people to create space for you isn't always easy.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because this quest of mine to be a better asker has led me into these books and these dialogues and these opportunities to see things differently. And I have come to believe that asking questions is the way to break that chain of the chain of being talked over. And simple questions, simple as like, I don't understand why you're saying that. I need some clarity on that, because it doesn't seem to work with me. I also send you that book Unbound, which is, once I get on a quest. But I love it, because as I was speaking earlier to Deborah, I'm reading this one book about the spiritual encounters of women, and then I'm reading this other book written by a dominatrix who has learned the power of asking. And she has said that women are programmed with giving answers and not with asking questions. And the person who asks the questions creates the influence in the room. And so she said that at one time, ask 600 women a question and they will answer you. If you tell them, I want you to answer my question with another question, you get 1 extra point. I want you to not only give me another question, but ask me why it's any of my business, and you get a 3rd point, and you get double points. So she asked the first woman, why don't you have children? And the woman went into her monologue as to why she doesn't have children. And the room kind of giggled. She asked the second woman, how long have you been married? And the woman answers her directly. And she said, if finally about the 4th person, they understood that they're to answer my question with another question. And then at some point, ask me what business is it of mine? Because of all the questions, why aren't you married yet? Why do you talk so much? How many children do you have? All the questions, and women feel
all the questions they don't ask men.
Right. They feel compelled. So she said, now I'll tell you this, if I asked 600 men and gave them the same format for the program, their first thing would be, what's it to you? Right? What's it to you? What do you care how long I've been married? And the question, of course, because she came out and she's very popular, but because the question would be simply the answer to one of the questions could be, well, what is it that you have to tell me in your hotel room that you can't tell me right here in the conference room? When women start understanding that questions direct outcomes, we'll ask different questions. Questions direct outcome. I mean, one of the things, and I hope we get to it, but mentoring is because when we look at power, we think it's an emotion, but power is just a silly word for influence. So how do we influence outcomes? How do we influence more women in a room who use their voice? How do we influence the ability to create a new world? Be so bold as to say that, a new industry, a new company structure, a new family dynamic. So we do that through the curiosity and confidence of being curious. Confidence.
Cathy, the other part of what you talked about was being a good receiver.
Yes.
And I'm still struck by what you said in the beginning about the reason women are such good doers is that we're not good askers, but we're also not good receivers. And, one of the aha moments I had about that was, when you're in a slump, depressed, at the bottom, whatever, what's the advice on how to get out of it? Do something for someone else, right? Get out of your head and be of service to another human being. And by not being good receivers, it's not a selfish thing. It's like we are taking away the opportunity for someone else to feel really good, right? Because if they're able to help us and be generous to us, if we're honest about what we're struggling with and what we need help with, what a incredible opportunity for them to step in and share some of their gifts and feel good. So, we have this perspective and it's all about us, right? And how we perceive it. We're going to be too vulnerable if we ask a question. We're going to look like we're weak and we don't have it all together if we're not doing everything. But switching the perspective to realize that a dialogue is about two people exchanging ideas. A conversation is not a monologue, right? Life is not lived in isolation. So the idea that you are intentional about opening those channels up, I think is really critical to the points that you're making.
Oh, have I told you how beautiful you look today, Leslie? How did you receive
Thank
that?
you, Cathy.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you. How did you receive that? How did we receive that? And how the receipt, and it is very, very funny. I think it's what we have to manage around the physicality as well as the expression, as well as the receiving, the inflow. You're right. It's the back and forth. It's the confluence of energy. It's not just the exertion of energy. It's the receiving of energy. When we can receive what we want to give, we have more to give. So the real givingness, I can't tell if you're frozen or not, Leslie. The real giving is initiated in what we are open to receive. That's the reservoir of what we get to give. Is Leslie gone? I think
it looks like she's having to
come back in.
Start. So you know what? While she's working to reconnect, this is Deborah behind the Woman Up logo.
The voice behind the voice.
The voice behind the logo over here. So one of the questions, if we could go back to the conversation earlier, it was, what kind of routine do you have in the morning and do you meditate? So I think that what the community is trying to understand is how have you become so Zen, Cathy?
That's such a good question.
Welcome back, Leslie.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened, but I'm back. Go team.
Go team. The morning meditation began when I was a mother of three, and they were all born within 4 years of each other. And I knew that if I was going to have any me time, that it would have to be before they get up and get moving. And so I became a ritualistic early riser, just out of just pure necessity. I've always loved to meditate. My prayers within that have always been kind of pointed at humanity, and then still from within. So I do. So I get up, not to ever go undone. Every morning meditation has been met with the strongest cup of coffee that could be physically allowed on planet Earth. I have added frothing to it, so I don't float over to my prayer chair. And I have a prayer chair, and I have a little sanctuary built up around it. And my life has been chaotic over the last 40 years, but I've always had a prayer chair. And I just do the prayer du jour. I do that. I move. I I love activities, so I get my workout in the morning. I have learned to break the habit of thinking I can only work out in the morning, because when it was dark and I was alone, I thought, okay, I'll work out tonight. So I've got a workout buddy for afternoon workouts so that I don't get too exhausted. But the rituals are always, and I say this, and I love Women Up, is to rise. I rise in the morning. I just rise.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, let me read the next question. From Paula Swain. She said, I love getting out and exercising once I have done it. However, the conversation I have with myself to convince me to get out and do it is nuts. Have I just not found the right exercise? So Cathy,
No.
you first.
Well, I will have to say, you're not crazy. You only think you are. So you get to like think less about it. My real secret to life is to think less and be more. Just be more. So just kind of, I often turn the squirrels down, and a good day begins the night before. So I set up the routine. If I know that I have no reason to break my promise to myself in the morning, I set up the shoes, the socks, the running.
Right. That I was just going to say, once you get the outfit is key.
Yeah.
You put it on, even if you're not going to go do it right away, you put it on. It's like kind of a done deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Next thing you know, you're 12 minutes into your workout. So just turn down the volume in your head, unless there's, we know the difference. We know what we know. We know when we're making things up. And so make a decision the night before, stick to your plan, and do the deal.
I will say one other thing, Paula, that has really helped me is I do make it more about the music. And I'm very aware of what music gets me going. And it's more, 70s, 80s, maybe the 90s that in Peloton, you can kind of search for the music. I mean, I need a beat. I need familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really becomes a music thing. And as I said, you can do anything to the right music. The other thing that helps me a lot is the support. And there is a Peloton group here in Women Up that's been incredible. But I'll tell you, a week ago, Saturday was my birthday, and I had meant to kind of have a big, come on, everybody, let's do a ride together. But things have been absolutely crazy. We're moving to Atlanta. I'll tell you all about that later, but it's been nuts the last month. So here I am, and I've just exchanged some texts with Sarah, and who sent me some Peloton gear for my birthday, which was so great. And I thanked her for that. And I said, I'm going to get on in a few minutes and do a birthday ride. I meant to invite, and she's like, when? I'll do it with you. So we ended up doing Jen Sherman's holiday ride. So it was kind of Christmas music in March, and it was just her and I, and it really was just such a highlight of that day for me, and I don't know if I actually would have done the ride that day if it hadn't been for her going, oh, you're doing that? I'd love to do that. So having those kind of moments where people touch you and join you is a wonderful thing too. And, even if if you're a walker, for example, and even if you've got a friend in a different state or a different city, just knowing that you're both doing it about the same time or on the same day, it really helps, like that personal connection. So I have found during the last year that I'm just an isolator. I'm not good on the phone, and I just get into this place where I just feel honestly bereft of my CAR family, and my family, and you just reach out and connect, and it again makes all the difference. So those are some tips, I think.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love that your connection isn't it's so perfect for me, your conversations and coffee, your connection. I mean, knowing that we're better when we're together, but not like on top of each other. Just
right.
knowing that we have plenty of space to breathe, and that we have plenty of things to give. And back to your before you got frozen out, because we've received so much.
Right.
So it's the receiving that gives us the ability to connect. We don't have to make it up as we go along. Not everything. I mean, a lot of things can be intuited and created, but a lot can be received. A lot of grace, rest. I mean, you look at all those things that we can ask for, like clarity. Can I just have some clarity around that? And clarity to me, I found out, is just the lack of drama. Can we just send the band home and just clean up the mess and get some clarity around this? So let's just have some clarity around this. I don't want to hear the story. I want to see what it is we're talking about here.
I'm so happy that the people that are and will listen to this haven't the chance to really experience you, Cathy, because you are an experience. And, just what you said about clarity being no drama, what a beautiful, that's amazing. Anyway, let me interrupt, not interrupt. I have a few more questions from our audience that I want to make sure. Mary Jane Cambria, one of our dear friends. Cathy, what motivated you to begin your health journey, she asks.
Well, people like her. That's one thing. People like her. I would say when I wasn't judging myself to try to make myself better, there was an inkling of joy underneath all that harsh self-judgment that I got to when I worked out. Just an inkling of joy, right? The rest of it was maybe driven by not being good enough. But when I touched that part inside of me that loved to sweat, that enjoyed breaking through physical boundaries, I found something that I didn't want to give up. And so I did that. And I used to, I'm coming up this year will be 40 years without drinking and 35 years through AA. But I learned, I kind of woke up to myself, and there was a part of me that wanted to quit dying. And that's the part of me that I keep wanting to celebrate. And so that's
that. Oh my God, Cathy. Amazing. You really touched me. Okay, let me add, someone had a great suggestion. Christine Citrano, routine is key. Put coffee on, timer at night, get out workout clothes, keep alarm in the bathroom so you have to get out of bed to turn it off. Keep house quiet and dark in the morning to ease into it. Meditate, journal, and gym. So that's another kind of summary of so many of the things that you said. So Cathy, we're almost at the top of the hour, and I knew it would be like this, right? That I feel like we're just getting started. I love you so much. You have made such a difference in my life, and I thank you. And I'd love to just end with anything that you would like to add, and please take it away.
Yeah, I will. And I'm conscious of time out of people's respect. First of all, I love you. And I mean that with like this vibration of like, yes, it's Leslie. Yes. I mean, there's just this more than a ripple effect. It's a tidal wave of that. And I just want to urge, one of the things I love about Women Up is that we need to mentor one another. When I first came into the business, yes, it was the 80s, for Pete's sake. Guys had to open the door for me and say, come on in, right? I had my guy friends. I had people who mentored me, who saw something in me and advanced me. In 2021, we need to be that one that opens the door for other women. And we need to be in a position to where we give other people opportunities to shine within that, because we need to shift the paradigm by the way that we treat one another. Real estate has an opportunity. It took getting into real estate for me to meet people first, like Kathy Allerton, Gretchen Pearson, Leslie Appleton Young, Ann Pettijohn, Toby, Colleen Badagliacco, just Mary Jane Cambria, Betty Tate. I mean, it took me to say, whoa, I no longer have to look up to a man who's going to open doors for me. Other women are giving me opportunities. And the opportunities are to influence the lives and impact and inspire other people. And so, granted, we take the whole room into consideration, but we need to look within and see the women that can step into positions of influence and not power. I don't care. It can't be power. Power is a funny little thing. It's like a weapon, so we can change our power. It can go from scalpel to machete for all I care. But it's still a matter of what really creates is the spirit of influence that we bring into a room. And people will feel us before they hear us when what we have on the inside is the good stuff. And so I just want to end with go be that savior that we've been looking for in business. We are those women opening the door for other women. So thank you.
Cathy, thank you so much. I am thrilled that we have recorded this so I can go back and listen to it and take notes on some of the incredibly beautiful things that you said. You embody what Women Up is about, woman up. Yeah. We rise together. So yes, with that, I want to thank Cathy from the bottom of my heart for being Cathy and being on today, and for Bill Jansen for bringing us together.
Our little match.
It's been a love match, Bill.
Yeah, we'll have to send him this recording.
And I look forward to seeing everybody next month. Stay tuned for details and make it a terrific day. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.